Okay, so last video, year 11, we've looked at prelude in quite a lot of detail. Now let's just look at that last question. So this would be typical of the 25 mark question. So choose one other poem from the anthology in which the poet also writes about nature. Compare the way the poets present nature in your chosen poem with the way Wordsworth presents nature in the prelude. So you've only got the named poem, which you had for the 15 marker that you have already written a response to, and then you've got to compare it with one other poem of your choice from the anthology. And as I said already, this is where students find this question really difficult because they don't have the other 17 poems to be able to refer to. So I'm going to do this two ways. I'm going to try and hopefully show that you don't, if you're really struggling with quotes, and that's again, I'm going to try and do, me myself as I'm doing this, I'm going to try and not look at the poem Death of a Naturalist as well, because that's what I'm going to compare it with. Just to show that the quotations can be quite short. You don't have to have really long quotations. If you've got going for the grade 9, it would be expected that you have extensive knowledge of all of the poems. However, you could potentially just memorise a couple of like really small quotes, and that should be enough to get you through. So I would, as I've said already, I would compare this with Death of a Naturalist for a number of reasons. Other teachers might decide to pick up other ones. It's completely your choice. Death of a Naturalist. It's not just one poem has to compare with one other. You can compare it with multiple. So Death of a Naturalist by Seamus Heaney. The reason I would personally choose this poem is because both poems explore the changing relationship with nature due to loss of innocence. So as both poets age, remember then both these poems are memories as well, so both poems are memories, so they're all autobiographical. Both poems are memories from their own experience. I'm just writing all this down. And due to this, there's many similarities that can be made across both poems. But essentially, you have quite clear structural differences in the poems. From the beginning of the poem, nature is more positive, if I'm just trying to really summarise it in a nutshell. You've got both poems positive at the beginning, positive view of nature, and then as they age with experience and loss of innocence, their relationship with nature changes when nature becomes more negative. We see this in Death of a Naturalist. I'm just going to put Death of a Naturalist like this, okay? And I'm going to say beginning of the poem, nature, the frogs. I'm going to put the frogs. No, I'm going to put the speaker is fascinated by the frogs. He describes the frogs, he describes like the blue bottles and the butterflies in that flax dam. It's almost like boggy water. And whereas most people, the audience, most people would be disgusted and revolted by the flax dam, by the boggy swamp. Instead, he is kind of mesmerised by it. Most people would be disgusted by the flax dam, so that's like the boggy water, the flax dam. However, due to his innocence, linking nature and innocence here, his innocence, he is like transfixed. I'm going to put transfixed by the frogs. He, if you remember in the poem as well, he displays the frogs. So not only he collects the frogs, but he collects all of the frog spawn up, puts it into jam pots full. I'm trying to remember quotes now. Jam pots full, and he displays the frog spawn on his windowsill. I'm just trying to remember some quotes. Windowsill. So again, this kind of pride that he has. What's wrong with that? Am I missing a hyphen? Oh, one word. No. So it highlights his pride. And he waits and waits for it to open as well, until they start to turn into tadpoles. So in that second half of the first stanza, it says and waits and watches. So you've got the repetition of repetition of and, or the conjunction and, to show his fascination and impatience, where he's again quite excited about the frogs. In the second half of the poem, second half of the first stanza, he also describes how he was learning. Sorry, just had to pull that. I've got a knock at the door. Let's carry on. Sorry, interrupted by a student at the door. Where was I? Oh, God, I lost where I was now. I said about frogs. And repetition was used to show his excitement. Oh, second half of the first stanza. He describes learning about nature and the frogs. About the frogs. He talks about the mammy frog. He's got the mammy, Irish tonelet mammy, and daddy and bullfrogs. And you've got, he lists in that stanza, it's the use of enjambment is used there, and it shows like childlike language where he's really excited. So he's kind of continuation throughout the lines. Children tend to speak very quickly, and that is reflected through the enjambment used in the second half of that stanza as well. Use of enjambment reflects his childish excitement about the frogs. Childlike, I don't like it, childish, childlike excitement that he has as well. Now, at the end, so I mentioned the beginning, and then what you would do here is that you'd then link this to the prelude. So the way we've looked at that with how kind of relaxed and how excited and how at peace he is with nature, is also reflected in the prelude, which we've already looked at with the 15 marker. I'm not going to go over it again, but you would then make that link between them. End of the poem. Nature changes to fear and disgust due to loss of innocence. And we can see this through the frogs becoming, so the frogs become a threat. And he uses the word threat. I'm sure he uses the word threat. He uses words like they invaded. Also describes them as mud grenades. I'm going to do the mud grenades in a bit more detail because there's a lot of analysis I can go through that. He also describes them how he ducked away. So he's trying to hide from the frogs. So nature becomes intimidating. Nature becomes intimidating and fearful, like the prelude, as we've mentioned already. Technique being used, you've got that semantic field of the military, or you can call it militaristic language, so military language. Militaristic language. So words like invaded and grenades and ducked and threats, and again that links to it being a threat. And nature becomes terrifying, and which is also shown in the prelude. In terms of the structure of this poem, the form, you've got this split into two stanzas. You've got the first stanza, which is his childhood view of nature, and then you've got that last stanza after the Volta. After the Volta, we can see that his relationship with nature changes. Nature becomes dangerous. Oh God. Okay. Context. Knew I missed something. Context. Heaney. Irish poet. Spent most of his life, grew up on a family farm. Many of his poems look at the theme of civil war in Ireland during the Troubles in the 1980s, 70s and 80s. But this one is more so just a memory of his childhood. So it's one that's actually more innocent. But grew up on a family farm. Also, again, because of that close relationship with nature. And like I mentioned at the beginning, this poem is a memory. Okay. That's it, I think. I don't want to talk about the Troubles. No, that's enough. And finally, that is it. Good luck, Year 11. Final reminder, if you're going to take anything away from these very long videos that you've been watching over the last, probably last hour and a half. Final reminder, 4 questions in total. 2 questions on Macbeth, 1 the 15 marker and 1 the 25 marker. and then 2 questions on poetry, 1 15 marker and 1 25 marker. Context is needed for poetry, what may have inspired the poets, and I think that is it. Thank you so much for staying till the end, Year 11, and best of luck for Monday. Take care. Bye.